Will you all please join me in Gasho and repeat the nembutsu with me. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, 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 Namanda. Good morning, everyone. It's a very nice day out today. It was a foggy morning, but the sunshine was able to break through. For those of you who were not aware, but it seems that the groundhog saw their shadow, and I think we're going to get another, how many weeks of winter? 6 weeks of winter. And it seems that's going to be the case because tomorrow it's going to rain, and possibly at nighttime it's going to snow. So it doesn't look like we're quite out of winter just yet. But regardless, we still endure. We have heating here in the Hondo, and all of us are, I see all of us are bundled up very nicely when we come in still. So today we are commemorating, we are observing our Pet Memorial and Nirvana Day service. Pet Memorial and Nirvana Day service. For the Dharma School Hoa, or the Dharma School Dharma Talk, I would like to talk about Pet Memorial Day. How many of you in the congregation grew up with pets? Mostly all of you have. How many of you in the congregation have pets right now? We fondly remember our past pets. I can name you all of the pets that I grew up with from a young childhood. I had a cat named Neko. For those of you who don't know, in Japanese, Neko means cat, so I don't know why my mom decided to name the cat that, but it was a beautiful white short-haired cat named Neko. That was my first pet. Then I had a very loving and very trusting Cocker Spaniel named Skid. Then I had another cat named Sullivan, followed by Kobe, Sullivan was a tabby short-haired cat. Kobe was a long-haired, big, fat orange cat. And then we then adopted our neighbor's cat because the neighbors moved away and didn't take the cat with them. We called her Neighbor Kitty for the longest time. And then lastly, we had, before I moved out and went to Japan, we had adopted another stray cat named Buster. If you hadn't noticed, or if you hadn't guessed, my mother is kind of a crazy cat lady woman. So and just to prove that point, when my parents moved to Oakland, the house that they moved to in the Oakland Hills already came with 2 stray cats, which my mother promptly adopted and fed, and named Mookie and Pookie. We have many pets, and actually now, as you all know, Reverend Cindy and I have our own cat named Irvin, he's so cute, he has polydactyl thumbs, so his paws look like mittens. I'm certain all of you have pets that you adore and that you love. Our pets are our greatest teachers, I think, in many ways, especially for us, for children, but adults too. They teach us routine, responsibility, and respect. Routine because we all come home after a day's work or after school, and our pet is there. Responsibility. How many of you have a dog? You have to walk the dog. You have to take the dog outside. You have to clean up after your dog. The same thing with cat owners. You have to come home. You have to feed the cat. You have to empty the cat's litter box. And even if you have just one cat, you should have at least 2 litter boxes. They teach us responsibility because we have when we have to take the cats or the pets to the vet every year for a checkup. They teach us responsibility because we have to budget sometimes. When our pets get older, we have to put them on medication. And that medication can be very expensive. They teach us respect. Our pets teach us that we have to love them. We give them pets, we give them love. Lots of times we let them sleep with us in the bed. We let our cat sleep with us in the bed. And, they need our attention. They need our love. We come home and we expect to see these pets. They show us unconditional love. All they ask in return is our love and respect and a responsibility of feeding them. In Buddhist terms, our pets teach us about both interdependence and impermanence. The impermanence lesson is very hard for us sometimes. I grew up with many cats, as you have heard, and when every one of them passed, there was a deep sense of loss and a deep sense of sadness in our family. One of my most memorable books and one of my favorites that my mother used to read to me as a child was by Fred Rogers, or more commonly known as Mr. Rogers. Do all of you know who Mr. Rogers is, even our Lotus class? Yes, you know who Mr. Rogers is? He wrote a book called When a Pet Dies. And for those of you who are new parents or who have very young children, I still think that this is one of the best books that has ever been written. And it's, again, by Fred Rogers. He explores what a child goes through when we lose a beloved pet. Not only this, his book talks to the child. He says you, right? He's talking to us. And reassures the child that all of the emotions that they feel are fine and valid. He talks about the initial sense of shock and then the sadness that we feel. He also explores that when our pet is not with us, we may feel angry. And then we might feel lonely but want to be alone. All of these feelings, Mr. Rogers says, are valid feelings and things that we should feel when we lose our beloved pet. The Buddha would also reassure his followers as well. The Buddha was able to comfort his many followers when they were met with a great sense of loss, when impermanence would take place. He didn't put people down. He didn't say they were foolish or stupid for feeling the way that they feel. He would say that these feelings are very real, and that because of our attachments, because of our love and care, we can't help but feel a great sense of sadness. When we lose a pet, we are taught the most hard lesson in life we will ever encounter: losing those who we love. Many of us had many pets in our lives, and each time we lose this pet, we experience this great sense of sadness. But then, after the sadness passes, and after we feel these very valid and important feelings, we also come to accept that love and that care that we gave the pet, and we use that for maybe in the future, another pet that we may adopt. We learn from our pets, the mistakes that we made. Maybe we forgot to feed the pet one day. Maybe we let too many days go by without emptying the litter box. Maybe we forget to take the dog out for a walk. We learn from these as well. And we use them to become better pet owners and better people. Our pets can be our greatest teachers if we allow it to happen. And so to our Dharma School children, many of you may want to have a pet if you don't have a pet already. And having a pet can be a wonderful and cherishing thing. Having a pet can lead to wonderful times of happiness and great senses of love and care. But just remember, having a pet or being the responsible owner of a pet comes with a lot of hard work as well. You have to ask yourselves, are you ready to own a pet? Are you ready to put that love and care, Do you just want the pet for looking at something cute? Or do you want the pet because you actually feel that you are ready to carry this responsibility? These are important questions that we must all ask ourselves. But then, of course, we are never ready when impermanence comes and knocks on our door. We are never ready when the inevitable change happens. Yet when that time comes, we also must allow these feelings of sadness to happen, these feelings of anger, these feelings of frustration and loneliness. But we must not be stuck in those feelings. We must also allow these feelings to turn into feelings of gratitude and happiness. These feelings of joy. We can carry these feelings of joy from the time of our pet and carry them into the present. I would like to thank you all for joining me today and remembering our fond loved pets as we have them on the screen today. Tears may come into your eyes for these times and remembrances, but that is okay. It means we are very much connected to the emotions we feel. I would like to thank you all for joining me today, and in closing, please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, namandats, namandats. Please join me in Gassho. In short, although persons say the name, if they do not entrust themselves to the primal vow that is other power, they will surely be born in the borderland. But how can it be that those who deeply entrust themselves to the power of the primal vow are also born there? Please say the nembutsu fully, understanding what I have explained above. My life has now reached the fullness of its years. It is certain that I will go to birth in the Pure Land before you. So without fail, I will await you there. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, namandats, namandats. Good morning again, everyone. Once again, we are commemorating Pet Memorial Day and Nirvana Day. So in the Dharma School Dharma Talk, I talked about Pet Memorial Day. And in the Adult Dharma Talk, I would like to talk about Nirvana Day, or Nehan-e, as we say in Japanese. Why is this an important day? This is the service that marks the time that Shakyamuni Buddha passed away. You can actually see a beautiful picture of it here in our own Hondo, on my left, but to your right. And it's the last picture depicted at the end of the story of the Buddha. Right there, you can see he is surrounded by many of his followers. There are animals, there are many people there, monks and lay alike, and they are all lamenting the Buddha's passing. This is because the Buddha was a great teacher and was able to bring comfort and hope to all of those who were suffering before him. But, of course, naturally, we as unenlightened beings and people we call bonbu, or ordinary beings, become attached to our teachers, right? We become very much attached to our great teachers and the people we come to rely upon and trust with our, vulnerabilities and our imperfections, but also, people we count on to guide us in life. Some of you yourselves are teachers and have felt this responsibility as well. But what happens, right? Even Shakyamuni Buddha, even though he was a great teacher, awakened to nirvana under the Bodhi tree, awakened to enlightenment, he was still kept and very much vulnerable to the limitations of the human body. Now, of course, we know that there are many wonderful stories and mystical stories about the Buddha, the Buddha being able to be in two places at once, the Buddha flying, all of these cool superhero powers the Buddha was able to do. But even with all of those powers, Shakyamuni Buddha was also susceptible to that almost always, that impermanence that all of us are susceptible to, the end of life. So naturally, Shakyamuni Buddha's followers and all the people who relied upon him were very much distraught when it was about time for Shakyamuni Buddha to pass away. But in that time, Shakyamuni Buddha, and if you read the teaching of the Buddha, that orange book that we give out freely, he said to his disciples, do not just rely on my body, right? Do not just rely on the physical thing that you see in front of you. Hold steadfast and grasp the teachings and continue to teach those teachings. In that way, I am eternal, right? So the physical body will one day pass. We all become susceptible to old age, sickness, and death, the sufferings that Buddha saw. And even Shakyamuni Buddha was not able to escape this. But the reason why this is so important is because Buddha entered into the stage of what we call Parinirvana. Okay, so when the Buddha passed away, Buddha became supremely enlightened. And this was the ultimate enlightenment that freed him from the sufferings of the human body, right? And also no longer cycled in that everlasting circle of birth and death, which is samsara. There are very neat pictures of samsara. I should have put that in the PowerPoint presentation, but there's a really cool picture of the wheel of samsara that continues to turn. And King Yama, this what looks to be like a demon king, but he's actually good. You know, it looks like he's eating the world. But what he's doing is he's kind of judging where you're going to go next after you die, which realm of existence you're going to go to. The Buddha, once you become enlightened, is able to step off of this wheel. And this is why the Buddha reached the stage of Parinirvana. The Buddha taught many lessons in life. And his followers, were, relied upon or were requested by the Buddha, if not commanded, to continue handing down these teachings to future generations. What a wonderful thing now that we have so many schools of Buddhism. If you look in the United States, there are so many schools of Buddhism that you can follow, that you can go to. There are Zen schools, there are Tibetan schools, there are Thai forest tradition schools, there are Vietnamese Buddhists, things that, and of course I say things in cultural context, but again, right, but these teachings are very much, flavored with whichever country some of these Buddhist teachings came from. But this is all because Shakyamuni Buddha told his disciples that you must not rely just on the physical form of me, but also the teachings that I have given to you. And so many of these teachings came down, passed through many generations, over 2,000 years, and I am particularly grateful to the teaching of Jodo Shinshu, our sect of Buddhism. Now, I should say that I am not stating that our sect of Buddhism, that Jodo Shinshu is better than everybody else's sect of Buddhism. This Buddhism just happens to be the Buddhism that works best for me. And it is because it fully embraces my imperfect self. But see, this is what Shinran Shonin was talking about in his letter. And I think for me personally, not only is it just the part that embraces me about my imperfect self, but Shinran also, like Shakyamuni Buddha, was able to give this great sense of comfort when there was this time of great impermanence. As we all know, Shinran also passed away at the ripe age of 90 years old, 1262. He passed away at 90 years old, and he instructed his followers to entrust in the nembutsu, teachings. And this is my favorite part of his letter to his members. My life has now reached the fullness of its years. It is certain that I will go to birth in the Pure Land before you, so without fail I will await you there. He gives his followers this great sense of comfort because, again, right, we all pass from this world, and we all have to pass from this world, and even Shakyamuni Buddha did. But even with that happening, Shakyamuni Buddha was able to give his followers great senses of comfort, knowing that just because my physical body is gone, my teachings will still remain. Just because my physical body is no longer here, my presence will still be felt. And the same goes with Shinran Shonin. Shinran encouraged also to his dying day to entrust in the nembutsu path. This is why we say Namo Amida Butsu, because Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion continues to work in our favor, continues to work for our benefit, continues to work to free us from the karmic wheel of samsara. And this, by the way, is also a teaching that the Buddha taught. It didn't just come from Shinran. This was also taught by the 7 masters, starting backwards from Master Honen to Master Genshin, to Master Shandao, to Master Daochuo, to Master Tanluan, to Master Vasubandhu, to Master Nagarjuna, going all the way back to Shakyamuni Buddha. All of these masters have stated that even though we must physically leave, the nembutsu will remain. And to me, this is what really moves me about Jodo Shinshu, is that even though Shinran Shonin, who lived in the years of 1173 to 1263, so many hundreds of years ago, over 850 years ago, we still say Namo Amida Butsu to this day. And the reason for that is because the teachings and the working of Amida Buddha surpasses the timeless time that we call life. The linear aspect of what our lives are, Amida Buddha's working and compassion still works for our benefit. So what can we do but to put our hands together in deep gratitude and say, Namo Amida Butsu. I thank you all for joining me today for this Nirvana Day service. Please join me in Gasho. My life has now reached the fullness of its years. It is certain that I will go to birth in the Pure Land before you. So without fail, I will await you there. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, namandats, namandats.